watch this channel, you'll know I'm not a professional. I literally just watch these videos with you guys, from you guys, and I give you my thoughts on them as Christine. That's it. That's all I am. I'm just Christine. But often, you know, I can get sick of hearing my own voice. That's why I like reading you guys' comments and seeing what you have to say, but most of you are just a normal person like me. So when I have the chance to actually hear a professional and see if any of my views and takes align with what the professional says, I get really excited about it. Let's get into today's video. Hey, it's Christine Grace. Welcome back to my channel. Today is another reaction video. Like the video on your way in. Let's get straight into it. So today's episode is from Dr. Orion Teraban. We love his channel over here. If you don't know who he is a psychologist, very well-educated man, very good video essays. And today's video is called Women Are Dirty, Understanding Their Dark Desires. This is a subject that I love because, you know, even the conservative trad women who are all for women won't address this stuff. So let's see what he has to say.
I'm Dr. Orion Teraban, and this is Psych Hacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is Women Are Dirty. Now, I don't mean that they're physically dirty. I mean that women's minds are full of dirty, dark, and twisted desires. To be fair,
if you're shocked by this, you shouldn't be. One of the best-selling female books of all time is 50 Shades of Grey, about a woman who basically gets like trapped in like a prison by this very wealthy man, and he basically just like has her way with her. If he didn't look how he is described to look, he would be considered a creep. So if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about women, I don't know what will.
men's minds are the same way, but men already have a reputation for this. Girls, on the other hand, are presumed to be made of sugar and spice and everything nice. And I'm here to tell you that is far from the truth. So we can consider this an extension of an episode I made a while back called Every Woman is Two Women, in which I attempted to explain that every woman carries at least two personalities inside of her. One is the public-facing persona that she uses when she goes to work and rides the bus and engages with her friends and family. And the other is the bedroom persona that comes to life behind closed doors. And it's very difficult to make accurate predictions about the bedroom persona simply by viewing the public-facing persona. That said, we can make some reasonable generalizations derived from psychological truths and observed behavior at like the population level. When we look at these sources, we see that women's desires are much more socially unacceptable than they are typically considered to be, and that these socially unacceptable desires tend to cluster around fairly predictable themes. First and foremost, let's examine what we might consider the prototypical feminine romantic fantasy, namely Beauty and the Beast. Beautiful Belle explores her Stockholm Syndrome kink and falls in love with her monstrous, aggressive captor, despite his grotesque appearance. The conventional
This is true. This is true. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean, you know, start growing your hair everywhere to look like a werewolf and, you know, don't brush your teeth, don't clean yourself so that you look like a scary beast to pick up a woman. But there's some truth in it. If you do want to know what you should do to pick up a woman, then you should definitely check out today's sponsor. Wait, let's be real for a second here, guys. Most guys today are completely clueless when it comes to flirting. They either come off as creepy or worse, completely invisible to women. That's why I want to quickly tell you about today's sponsor, the Wing Girl Method. It's run by Marnie, yes, a woman, and she's actually helped tens of thousands of men to stop failing at flirting. You should specifically check out her F formula. It teaches you the actual psychology behind attraction, not just pickup artist nonsense. Real practical stuff that works in the real world, not just a viral TikTok video. Now, if you're a guy who's completely given up on dating, you're not interested in women, you're happy staying single forever, then skip this ad because this isn't for you. But if you're tired of getting ignored, you're tired of wondering why nothing ever really goes anywhere, and you're ready to actually understand how to get a woman interested in you, not the fake version of you that you think she wants, then this is something you should check out. The F formula gives you a full step-by-step system to flip the script. So instead of you chasing her, you're the one that she's drawn to. And because women do respond to flirting, just when it's done right, we're complicated like that. Because the Wing Girl Method is sponsoring today's video, they're offering my viewers an unbeatable deal. Just click the link in the description now to grab your free exclusive preview of the F formula. Plus, if you do decide to pick up the full program, you'll get 50% off. A whole 50% off. If you're tired of failing at flirting and being stuck on the sidelines, then stop wasting your time, take control of your dating life, and click the link below and get access right away. Back to the video.
Interpretation of this story is that the purity and patience of Belle's love transformed the inhuman beast into a handsome gentleman who she was somehow able to perceive beneath the surface. It's what's on the inside that counts, right? But this interpretation lacks parsimony. It's actually more straightforward to posit that Belle fell for Beast because he's beastly, it's in his name, not despite the fact he was beastly. Let's consider. We often speak of nefarious men who see women purely as objects of sexual conquest, men who are solely interested in adding another notch in their belts, as it were. However, this is not an exclusively gendered practice. Women also see men as objects of conquest, albeit potentially a conquest of a more emotional or psychological variety. Women can and do desire to conquer men, and the paramount conquest of a woman is domesticating the bad, dangerous, unbreakable man into her pet. I'll say that again. The paramount conquest of a woman is domesticating the bad, dangerous, unbreakable man into her pet.
It says it in Genesis, women will desire to rule over their husbands.
This is the challenge that women pine for. They're like horse whisperers on the lookout for the Mustang no one else can tame. This is the female equivalent of the challenge depicted in, say, Dangerous Liaison, in which Valmont seeks to seduce the chaste and engaged Cecile. The fact that one conquest is more or less sexual and the other is more or less emotional is kind of beside the point. In fact, because it's emotional, such a conquest is much more likely to be complete and enduring relative to a sexual one. And if we understand Beast's monstrosity to be a feature, not a flaw, with respect to Belle's attraction, a lot of otherwise mystifying female behavior starts to make sense.
I think there's another level to it as well. I think some of it is almost fear-based. So I think the initial attraction of a beast is the fact that a beast is unpredictable, that's exciting, they're willing to take risks, that's can be mistaken for a, impulsivity can be mistaken for a masculine trait of decision making, albeit impulsively. That's why I say mistaken. So it's this idea that I can get a beast, and that's the sexual attraction part. But then the problem arises that once that woman has slept with him, she becomes emotionally attached to him through pair bonding, and then she needs to domesticate him because she's emotionally attached, and she can't let him go. Again, I'm not the professional here, but that's just me speaking as a woman and having watched many women for quite a few years now.
Belle is into bestiality. I don't know how else to say it. She could pick any man in a 50-mile radius, and she chose an animal. And this, of course, is...
I'm getting flashbacks to that, what is it? The Milking Farm book that Siobhan Head told us about. What is it called? Something Milking Farm. Morning Glory Milking Farm. No! I hate you guys. This job has ruined me.
Is why the story has to end when it does, with the transformation of Beast into a gentleman. After all, if she fell in love with a monster, how long do you think she'd be interested in a gentleman? She could have had one of those from the get-go and spared herself all the trouble. Belle has succeeded in her conquest, but in so doing, she has undermined the basis of her own attraction. So I don't have high hopes for the longevity of that relationship. We undermine the bases of our own attraction to our own detriment. Just like Don Juans lose interest in a woman after they possess her physically, the Belles of the world lose interest in a man after they possess him emotionally. They want to tame the bad boy, but when they succeed in doing so, they are no longer interested in him.
Yep.
And they typically have no compunction about moving on to more exciting opportunities. Now, we have to remember that this heartwarming tale of conquest and bestiality is the all ages version of the story. When we approach content that is created exclusively for adults, we see these themes even more clearly. Romance novels constitute the majority of best-selling fiction today, with over 60% of Kindle bestsellers coming from that genre.
Listen, say what you want about Freud, but he was right. All PR is based off of Freudian psychology. You know, I studied media at A-level, and albeit most of it was just, you know, propaganda to try to turn me into some kind of like liberalist. But Freud was right about a lot. So much of what we do as human beings is led by sexual desires. And, you know, it's a conversation people don't want to have because, you know, it can be uncomfortable, but it's true. It really, really is true. If you look at the way things are marketed, everything is sex, everything. And of course, that's our fundamental drive. We wouldn't be here if we cared about anything else more. Of course, it's our fundamental drive to reproduce.
A figure that is largely driven by the popularity of romantasy books in which romance and fantasy elements are blended together. And who are the male protagonists in these works of fiction? You already know the answer. You guessed it. Monsters. The most mainstream examples here typically involve run-of-the-mill monsters, creatures like vampires and werewolves, whereas the choice of species grows increasingly outré as you make your way off the beaten path. For instance, a very popular example these days is Morning Glory Milking Farm.
No! Why? Why can't I escape this damn book?
In which a young millennial woman gives hand jobs to minotaurs in order to pay off her student loans, eventually falling in love with one of her bullheaded clients. Trust me, women's hear me outs are far.
You saw Sean's head coverage of it. She went to the Amazon reviews, and all of the reviews are just like 5 stars. Hear me out. No. Hear me out is such a funny phrase. I will see like the most atrocious video on Instagram that I'm not even going to describe because it is that dark and that atrocious. And there will be dudes in the comments going, hear me out.
Are more deviant than men's. But our society more or less completely disavows that these desires exist. Speak to them directly, and you're much more likely to get slapped or hit with an HR complaint than to find a willing and eager participant, which is probably why women are increasingly retreating into a private world to satisfy them. And this doesn't stop with text-based fantasies that they read for the story. For instance, women's use of pornography has absolutely skyrocketed in recent years. Whereas pornography functionally used to be an exclusively male space, women now constitute around 40% of all consumers of that content. It's basically half and half. And we know from their revealed preferences that the types of pornography that men and women tend to consume exhibit marked distinctions. For example, pornography that depicts violence against women is...
How much do you want to bet it's more popular amongst women? How much do you want to bet it's more popular amongst women? Come on, how much? £5? £5? I'll bet you £5. No, there's a lot of you. I'm not doing that.
far more likely to be consumed by women.
Oh, not all men, but always a man. Oh, do you know what? At this point, I don't know whether to laugh or, be peed off about it, because it's just like, I've been saying this stuff for so long and women get so upset when you do. Finally.
Than by men. Hitting, slapping, humiliation, even simulated rape. These are some of the dark fantasies associated with the kind of deep submissiveness for which women cannot find a social...
This is why I get so annoyed with women online when, like, they'll just talk about things and they'll talk about these things like, oh, men are disgusting. And it's like, you really don't have a position to talk. Now, I'm not shaming anyone, if you are into that stuff, like, that's absolutely fine, but you don't get to shame men for being into what they're into, because, it could so easily be said about women too. The problem is not the kinks or the desires or the fantasies. The problem is the shaming of it, to a degree. Again, everything has nuance. I'm not saying all kinks and stuff are okay. Of course, there are things that are like, you should probably be arrested if you're into. But for the most part, like he's just said, 40% of women are watching porn. Most women, I know this is a fact, most women's dark sexual fantasy is some form of rape or violence fantasy. What's that new movie that's just come out? Wuthering Heights. I mean, that's basically soft porn. So it's just, the problem with women is that there's never any fairness. There's never any in between. There's never just yeah, this is us and this is what we are and that's that. It's always either, the completely trad conservative route. We're these soft little petals that can never do any wrong, and we just want to frolic around like princesses and make daisy chains and bake cookies, which just isn't true, right? Or it's the complete other end. We're men. We can do anything men can do. And, we want to sleep around with a bunch of men and women just like men do. And, I don't know if I could say that word on YouTube, but we are, we're basically like men. So it's like either you're really, 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 really girly girl, bordering the point of infantilization, or you're basically a man. And it's like, no, you're probably just a girl. You're probably just a girl somewhere in between, and everything he's saying is true.
Acceptable outlet in today's day and age, especially in a culture in which describing women as anything other than powerful and dominant is functionally viewed as misogynistic.
Oh, I get what he's saying. So he's saying that the whole feminist thing and women having been, so dominant for so long and all of this, it's they're now just craving to be dominated because they're just so sick of pretending to be something they're not.
These desires have not been extinguished.
It makes sense, to be fair. It really does make sense why, female pornography sales and this, that, and the other is all going up. Because, yeah, you can bet a lot of these women are really sexually frustrated. Because either they're doing the whole boss babe thing, and they so desperately want to be allowed to be soft and a woman. A lot of them want to be kind of made to be like that, the whole dominant side of it. Or they're playing this trad wife role of I'm not into anything. And I just want to be treated like a delicate little flower. But it's all of us, men and women. I am a firm believer in the idea of Jungian psychology, the whole idea of yin and yang. I might be a woman, but there's obviously going to be certain parts of my personality that are more masculine. I have a very, very masculine sense of humor. It's quite embarrassing sometimes. I can be, yeah, just quite immature sometimes in my sense of humor. But, you know, even men, like, you're going to have a female part of you too. There's going to be parts of your personality that are more feminine. That doesn't make you a feminine man. It makes you a man. You know, we all have this like balance going on inside of us. It doesn't make us any less men or women. But as Freud says, you know, a lot of our instincts and our behaviors do come from that sexual drive. And I just have this idea that if both parts of the personality, the feminine and the masculine parts, aren't satisfied, then I guess the other part becomes, the part that isn't sort of receiving any attention becomes hungry. You know, it's shadow psychology. You ignore the dark parts of yourself for so long and you just think that you're this person that you want to be. Eventually, the person that you actually are is going to look you in the mirror and it's going to frighten you because you've ignored it for so long. And when it comes, like, it will be really big and scary and inflamed because you have pretended that it's not there for ages. So this theory of like women have been ignoring this part of themselves that wants to be dominated and submissive for so long is now becoming like enraged and, you know, manifesting in the form of more sexually violent books, pornography, this, that, and the other. It makes sense. It does make a lot of sense.
That's not how desires work. They have simply been pushed below the surface into a psychic space where even many of the women themselves do not understand them.
This is why we're locked. We love Dr. Orion Teraban on this channel. He's just great.
In any case, all of this can be understood as a kind of antithesis to the looks-maxing trend in many male circles today. You don't have to go to Korea and get a facial to get laid, my dude. Being pretty and attractive can help you get girls, yes, but paradoxically, so can being ugly and repulsive. Like being rough, rugged, burly, beastly, monstrous, even to the point of being repulsive, seems to exert a strange power over women.
Yep.
This could potentially be an artifact of sexual dimorphism. If prettiness signals femininity, then what is diametrically opposite to that, in this case, ugliness, would signal masculinity. As a man, you actually don't have to be good looking to get women, though of course it helps. And I'm going to end this episode.
I think the problem is that so many women are on birth control, so it's just like, it would be good to test this theory if so many women weren't on birth control, because women on birth control, we know, are more attracted to feminine looking men. So maybe looks maxing is a response to women's sexual desires and sexual preferences changing as a result of birth control. I don't know.
By putting a thought into the minds of every man out there. My guys, every time you get nervous about approaching a woman, every time you think that she is out of your league, just remember, she has fucked an uglier man than you. So buck up. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below.
Oh my goodness, I need to read the comments. Let's take a look. Someone says, I was brainwashed with the Disney/media version of what a woman is. But actually what he's saying, what Dr. Orion is actually saying, is that actually it's fairly accurate to how women are. It really does portray like the female fantasy. Someone said they weren't joking when they chose the bear. Someone said, I'm about to put on 30 pounds of lean muscle, grow my beard to my waist, and start communicating exclusively in wolf growls. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of girls that are into that, to be honest. Considering women ate up 50 Shades of Grey BS and love erotic fantasy novels where the male character is way out of their league, this doesn't surprise me. Things are going to get worse before they get worse. Wow, that's interesting. True story. I watched the last Beauty and the Beast movie with my daughters. After Beast was transformed, they both found Gaston really annoying. Yeah. It's just female psychology. And at the end of the day, you know, you can either be frustrated by it and find it hypocritical, or you can just accept what it is, you know? And this is what it is. You know, you're not going to change it. This idea that like, oh, you know, women just need to be something different. We're not. So, you know, if you want to avoid us and just not get involved, totally understandable. It's a complicated game. But we've all got stuff under the surface. Now, I'm not going to lie. I think women are far more complex beings when it comes to, you know, this idea of two personalities inside us. I don't know if that's the same for men. I would presume maybe, but maybe not as not as complex. But yeah, you know, that's just the way of the world. I don't know why we're like this, but we just are. So either you understand it and you understand what Dr. Orion Teraban is saying, or you're frustrated by it and you don't want to understand, you have no interest in it whatsoever, you just want to complain about it, that's fine. But if you do want to figure out how to work it out, then don't forget today's sponsor. Click the link in the description if you want to get your free formula, your free preview of the F formula, and get 50% off when you pick up the full program. As always, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up on your way out. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with all of my content. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. As usual, I am intrigued to hear your guys' experiences with this one. No one really put their experiences in the comments of this video, so put them in the comments of this one, because I'm sure some of you have got some absolutely wild stories and I look forward to reading them. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by clicking the links in the description at Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal. And on that note, I will see you very soon in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.